Can't do my head like the parrot.
All right. Good morning, Ted. It's Tuesday. How you doing?
It's a Tuesday. It's the 9th of May. Welcome. Hello. It's the sell in May and go away edition of the Crypto Flight Path, which we talked about prior, but it seems that some people are probably taking that advice still. Real quick, this is a strange tangent to take right at the beginning, but I wonder how much of the sell in May thing, sell in May go away, is just a self-fulfilling prophecy that people they hear somebody else say it, like I initially heard somebody say it, and then was like, oh, that's what people do, then that's what I should do. But then you start looking into it, and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any darn sense, or
Yeah,
maybe it does make sense.
what this feels like to me is, look, we had, you know, a huge run up in the first quarter of the year. We just had a mini meme coin season, and I think you've got people taking profits. I think this is what that is.
Most
There's
definitely.
there's a lot of uncertainty around, the coming debt ceiling crisis, and whatever crisis they want to manufacture on a week by week basis.
Amen to
So
that.
yeah, so they're in overtime mode on crisis over there at the White House and in the media. But in terms of Bitcoin, I mean, we're ranging right now, right? We've been in this pattern where over the past few weeks, we've kind of bottomed out around 27.3 to 29,000 is where we've been ranging, and this is perfectly normal for Bitcoin. I don't see anything outside of the norm here. Do you, Ted?
No, this is downright rational, quite frankly. In a world, and I'm talking about in a world of financial markets where irrationality is what drives the machine most of the time, or almost all the time. The price, when I look at this chart, I see I see order among the chaos. What I mean is that there's clearly defined areas. Like pretend all those little green dots aren't there. I love the green dots. Don't get me wrong. The alpha thing is amazing. But what you can see here is that markets. So there's a concept that I learned about from the big boss who talked about markets in general tend to be forward-looking instruments. They tend to price in what they think the future is going to be like, and sometimes they get ahead of themselves. And there's this idea of, like, when you're skiing, if you do a little jump and you lean forward to try to land, sometimes you can get too far over your skis, and then when you land, you crash. So this being over your skis kind of thing is something that in financial markets you might have, or you might hear someone say it in the future that, oh, well, so and so stock, it looks like the market's got out over its skis, and the price is pulling back, et cetera, et cetera. You don't even know what any of that means necessarily. What I'm trying to communicate is that what I see here is a very orderly march up, and then some retracement, which looked very sane and orderly and downright calm, and by comparison, like in terms of volatility, like in terms of like the volatile nature of financial instruments in general. Some are way less volatile than others. Some are way more volatile. Crypto tends to be more pegged on the extreme end of the volatility scale. What I'm trying to say here again is that there's a channel. There's well-defined areas of demand at one price, and then there's well-defined areas of supply at another, where demand is meeting supply. And this is the pattern, and this is raw emotion here with the clicking of the button, the buy and the sell, and the buy and sell across millions and billions of transactions over this period of time. So what I think is happening also, you made some excellent points. There's media, there's things happening in the world which are being covered in the media, like the debt ceiling, like the crisis of the week, and the crisis of the day, and the things going on with the current administration, and the things going on with we're starting to get into the run up to the presidential election here in the U.S. next year. We're starting to get into the run up to the next halving event for Bitcoin next year sometime. Anyway, the point I was
Yeah.
trying to get to is this looks rather orderly, and quite frankly, it doesn't keep me up at night, and I'm not worried in the classical sense because the fundamentals remain intact.
Yeah, and so during these kind of periods, I mean, I'm not personally a trader. I don't trade a lot. I will make trades opportunistically and try to catch a swing trade over a 2 week to 2 month period. But what I do in this when it's like this is I take the opportunity to, and what you'll see when Bitcoin kind of does this and sells off a little bit, altcoins tend to bleed out slowly. So what this represents for me is an opportunity to acquire some of these altcoins that I think are going to do well in the next bull run on a dollar cost averaging basis over time. So, even though nothing's really happening in the market, it's kind of tough to trade. I look at this as an opportunity. Alts have kind of bled out a little bit. They may continue to do so. And I just look at this as an opportunity to acquire more projects that I think will do well in the next run. Now, mostly I acquire Bitcoin. That's been my strategy for a long time. So that's one way to look at it. And so I take the opportunity here to do that. Don't really worry too much about trading when it's like this. It's a real tough market to trade in. A lot of people get chopped out, and you'll see people take their trading capital and think they're going to jump in and pick the hottest meme coin, and they'll get wiped out. And then they'll just say, well, crypto's stupid. Okay.
Yep.
Well,
you just nailed it right there. It's like, I'm gonna go swimming with a bunch of alligators that I didn't do any research about this watering hole. I don't know what's lurking beneath the surface. I don't know who the real apex predators are in this ecosystem, meaning the trading ecosystem. I'm going to take some money that I worked hard for because I saw a couple tweets about somebody who made big bucks. I'm going to throw it in without asking anybody for help because I already know everything because of my ego. And within 90 days, there's a great statistic that's based in fact, derived from actual data, is that in 90 days or less, the average or 90% of retail traders get wiped, their accounts get wiped out in less than 90 days or 90 days or less. And then if that wasn't stupid enough, it's crypto's fault for this, or it's whatever's fault. It's the token's fault that you did this.
And we'll tell you,
and that's the business.
Crypto is a volatile market, right? And there are sharks in this market, and everybody is looking to take your money. I mean, that's true in any market, right? It's a zero-sum game. So the only way, unless you're an experienced trader, unless you want to take the time to learn, the best results that I've had with this are identifying projects that'll perform well over the long term, and just being patient. And that's the path that I've chosen. You might choose a different path, right? You might have a different skill set than I do. I think trading can be valuable. But that being said, I think what we wanted to talk about today was I wanted to bring up this tweet by Balaji first. And if you haven't followed Balaji, it's definitely worth checking him out. He's I guess you'd call him a thought leader. He has a really good way of articulating what's happening in the world, and he sees it through a different lens than you might typically see. But his recent claim to fame was that he bet $1 million that Bitcoin would hit $1 million in 90 days. And so he's came out and kind of articulated what he was doing. And if you'll see here on the tweet, he said, I just burned $1 million to tell you they're printing trillions. And so basically he said that he had $1 million planned to bring attention to Bitcoin and the fact that the government is printing trillions of dollars and debasing the currency. Okay, and so what he said is the best way for him to do that, somebody proposed a bet to him. He didn't make the bet. He said, okay, I was going to burn this $1 million anyway promoting this idea. The best way for me to do that is by accepting this bet and getting this out there. So the first thing I wanted to point out, if you go to his tweet, he's got a 9-minute video that tells you about what he's doing. And I think everybody should watch this. And it doesn't matter if you're in crypto or not. You have to understand what's going on. And that'll segue into the next thing we wanted to talk about. He made a tweet last night that $1 trillion coin or $1 trillion gold. So I'm sure you've heard about this idea, and it might have been from The Simpsons, which is the strangest thing in the world, how they predict so much that happens in the future. But the idea of the treasury printing a $1 trillion coin to get them out of this mess. Are you familiar with this idea, Ted?
Yes, to some extent, and it
seems absurd.
Yes, I mean, to me, man, forgive me. It's so absurd, and I mean, the thing I'm trying to the thing that is I'm struggling to articulate right now is that we have these people in these positions, these appointed positions like the Treasury Secretary and the Chairman of the Federal Reserve and all these other policy maker types or policy wielder types, and here they are. Here we are in a situation where they're opening their mouths in public forums to the general public, which the general public may not really understand what the heck they're talking about. I mean, ask the average person like what monetary policy is, for example, and I mean, it's like asking them what's the capital of South Dakota or something like, or what's the capital of Virginia, and you'll get like 50,000 answers, and not all, and most of them are wrong. But the point I'm trying to get to simply is that you tell somebody like when this idea gets floated out in the mainstream, oh well, don't worry about the debt ceiling, don't worry about the monetary or financial system collapsing. We're just going to mint $1 trillion coin and solve all our problems, and it feels like a psyop, quite frankly. Now I'll take my conspiracy helmet off and talk rationally again here for a second. If this or let's think about like where we've like how we've come to this point. We were on the gold standard, outlawed gold, confiscated it, the government did, and then we went off the gold standard in 1971, and now we've been through crisis, boom, bust, crisis, boom, boom, bust cycle, boom, bust cycle. How many times now? And remember the savings and loan crisis in the 80s or 90s or whatever, when I was a child. I still remember people talking about that. Didn't have the slightest idea what was going on, but they didn't look happy. Okay. And the point I'm trying to get to is that we're in this like boom bust crisis cycle. If you understand how these things work and you have enough capital firepower, you can profit from this crisis. I mean, there's chaos creates opportunity, a lot of people say, but for the rest of us who are just trying to live our lives and earn enough money to provide for ourselves and stay afloat financially speaking, this is absurd. And like, how do we process cognitively what $1 trillion looks like? I mean, you know what I mean? That's my commentary on this idea of somehow it's going to make sense to the constituents here. Oh, you mean all you got to do is mint $1 trillion coin and this solves our debt ceiling crisis? Oh, why didn't I think of that? Kind of thing.
It's absurd, and they move the goalposts, they change the rules. The thing I wanted to point out here is there's always another trick, right? There's always something else that they can pull out of left field and present to you as a solution to a problem that they created, right? And so the main point here is this idea that these people are going to somehow get us out of the problem that they created is not correct, right? It's the definition of insanity. They just keep repeating the same thing over, and we expect different results. They know that there's not going to be a different result. They're very well aware of that. But what Balaji is talking about here, and Luke Gromen made this point, is that there's a Federal Reserve policy that allows for the remonetization of gold. And so right now, gold is they're valuing the gold at 50 times less than what the market is, okay? And they're doing this is just a trick, right? Okay, what they could do is they could remonetize the value of gold, and if they did that, you're talking about, he's saying that right now they value it at 42.22 for an ounce of gold, right? All right, in the market is saying that gold is around $2,000 an ounce. All right, but what they could do, they could revalue gold to whatever they wanted to, right? They could say 4,000 an ounce, 5,000 an ounce, and that results in $1 trillion of gold. So the idea is, instead of printing $1 trillion coin, they could simply remonetize gold, and you end up with the same result. All right. Now they could take gold to $20,000. All right, and this is something that's interesting too when you talk about Bitcoin in relation to gold. Let's say they do this, fine, whatever. I don't care. I own gold. That would be fantastic. But how do we know they have the gold they say they do? Okay.
We have to trust, which is a big problem in and of itself, what the government is saying, which is another big problem because the government's opening its mouth and talking, or people in the government are opening their mouth and talking, which is a problem. Okay. And the point I'm trying to get to is that you have to put your full faith and credit in the government. I'm not, I'm a patriot. Okay. I believe in our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and all this other things, and I want less 1984 and more 1776. Okay. But what I'm trying to say here is that how many of us are going to be able to audit and understand exactly how much gold there is that is being monetized, and how do we know? And I'll contrast what I'm saying, or what I'm trying to say there is that anyone who's a critic of Bitcoin's monetary policy and the ability for anyone to download the software, put it on a computer and run a node and be able to verify mathematically, et cetera, down the line, that's for a whole nother discussion. But the point I'm trying to illustrate is that we can trust because we can verify Bitcoin's monetary policy. Anybody can. And what on the other end of that spectrum is that you have talking heads in the government in these positions talking in the mainstream about what they think they're going to do, and people are listening to this, and it feels insane. But how would we know? We would just honestly, and the reason this is so easy is because who's gonna challenge them? And if you challenge them, you're going to be made to look like a crazy person. So I sound like a crazy person to them.
Well, no, I mean we all sound like crazy people. You're not alone, buddy. The what he's saying is he's like saying think of this as tapping the strategic gold reserve, like tapping the strategic oil reserve. Republicans get the remonetization of gold, and the administration gets to extend the deadline by a few months. All right, this doesn't fix the problem.
Exactly. So, that's the real point, I think, here is that all of this does is it just extends the runway. So we're on this fully loaded airplane that's barreling down the runway. The end is there, and we're saying we can't stop. There's too much momentum. So what do? Do we lift off? No, we can't lift off. We need to build more runway. So there's a construction crew at the end of this runway clamoring to add more runway. And that's so that to me is what, like, when I visualize this problem in my head or try to make sense of it by visualizing it, that's what I envision, is that we're building more runway to give this thing more time.
Correct. Yeah. And so he's saying in the original article by Luke Gromen, the government could even value it at $20,000 an ounce, and that gives them, $5 trillion in gold if they have it, and it equates to 1 year of financial spending. All right. Like, so even if they do this, the runway gets extended by a year. All right. And so what Luke Gromen is saying, he figures at $20,000 an ounce, the Treasury could buy back enough USTs, the United States Treasuries, to get the debt GDP down to 50% or so. Then the Fed could normalize rates, I'm guessing is what he's saying, without problems. All right. And so, to the normal person, this is just, it seems like, you think you try to understand everything, and then there's another thing they can do, and there's always another trick. At the end of the day, this doesn't fix anything.
No, it does not. And it feels like we're at a magic show, and they've played a bunch of tricks. We still got some time on the clock, and they're trying to pull off another dazzling round of showmanship. And this is just my frustrated TED opinion about this, how that we're having these discussions. And anyway, it's confusing as all hell.
Well, here's what's frustrating. They're spending massive amounts of money, and instead of talking about how to quit spending money, they're talking about printing $1 trillion coins, and
to facilitate the more spending.
Yeah, how can we continue this massive amount of spending and not even at all address the spending problem in and of itself? And this is what happens when the government's out of control. You could be a patriot and question the government, right?
Exactly.
The two don't necessarily go hand in hand, right? And I think it's very uniquely American and part of being American to question your government, right? And so we should be saying, hey guys, what are you doing? Like, this is absurd. It really is. But that if you're in Bitcoin, you're going, yeah, okay, we're well aware of this. Like, go do whatever
Yep.
you want. You know, we know that you're not going to fix it, right? So we'll just
So what do we
continue
know
to.
about Bitcoin, Josh? We know that there's a fixed supply that is at the quantum level of this. It's engineered at the quantum at the smallest level of the system, that there will only ever exist a certain amount of Bitcoin that's accessible. We know that roughly 92% or so, give or take, has already been produced by the system, not by a person. We know that given the current monetary policy, having the policy that's in that every 210,000 blocks, which is roughly 4 years, the block subsidy drops by 50%. And we know that it's going to take until 2140, so well beyond our lifetimes, as far as I can do the math, is that the network at large, this organism that now exists, something that's greater than the sum of the parts, is going to produce its last little bit in 2140. We know that you and I, as sovereign individuals, can take possession of our money, the Bitcoin, the UTXO, the unspent transaction output. We can hold the keys to the kingdom, and we can transport that through space and time from one country to the next. Not quite yet with this whole multi-dimensional travel thing, but maybe Elon Musk will figure this out one day. But the point I'm trying to get is that we can actually take possession. And these are the more like real life boots on the ground problems that I see today, is that we have a banking crisis where we as Americans, we work for our money, in US dollars, we get paid, and we put them into the bank because we've been educated and told that the bank, it's money in the bank, it's safe. Okay, you put money in the bank to keep it safe. Yet here we are we're having another banking crisis, and there's concern now and I have this concern too, trying to do something with my existing bank, something simple like buy more crypto, and I'm having a problem, and it feels like choke point 2.5, quite frankly. Anyway, that's another can of worms. The point I'm trying to get to simply is that you think you have the ability to possess your money today, but we live in a world and in a country where if a bank goes out of business, they can take your money with you, and you don't actually own your US dollars unless you can go and withdraw cash from the system. You could go and you can hide that under your mattress, yes. But the other big problem that's staring us in the face is the ice cube melting, is the best way to make the analogy. And that's the ever-present fact that our purchasing power in US dollar terms continues to go down as more and more debasement occurs. And that's what I'm trying to give people here, to have their own aha moment when they realize for the first time, wait a minute, my purchasing power is the problem. It's not that I don't have enough dollars. It's that the dollars that I do have are going to buy less into the future. So why would I buy Bitcoin? Now I have my answer. I buy Bitcoin because I can own it. I can possess it. And I know it can't be debased. And I know that in dollar terms, on a long enough timeline, it preserves my purchasing power as long as we are required in the US, and I'm almost done. As long as we're required to pay our taxes in US dollars, there will be demand for US dollars, period. Okay, I'll get in the ring with anybody on that one. Okay, and I may lose. I may get a black eye from that experience. What I'm trying to communicate is, as long as we have to pay taxes in US dollars, there will be demand for US dollars. And what choice do we have as individuals, as free citizens? We can choose to hold something that's going to preserve that purchasing power. And we'll worry about Lambos later. I mean, this whole crypto thing about getting rich quick is such a distraction from what's actually happening in the world. And it's so sad. But anyway, the point I'm trying to get across to people is that there is a life raft, an option. If we're on the Titanic, monetarily speaking, and it's slowly sinking, then there is a life raft. It's called Bitcoin. And the rest of the crypto sphere, there's plenty of other interesting projects that have lots of utility for another discussion. But today we're talking about this morass that we're in, where we're talking about minting $1 trillion coins. People are worried about their banks being insolvent And it's quite frankly, I think it's ridiculous, all of it.
Well, yeah, and what you have to do is just consider the idea that you want to be in assets that will retain their purchasing power, because they're not going to fix this problem. It's an unfixable problem at this point, right? They're going to try everything that they can to extend the runway, and maybe they can extend it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 4 years. People have been saying for a very long time that this system's broken, and it's certainly not going to change under the Biden administration, right? They're not going to do anything to fix this issue, and we'll see what happens in 2024. But here's another thing, this idea that somebody else is going to come and fix this problem for you is something people have to get out of their heads. Nobody's coming to save you. There's not some new leader or new party or new idea that's going to come out of left field that's going to all of a sudden make your financial life better. There's things they can do to eliminate some of the rot and some of the gluttony, but as far as an individual is concerned, no one's coming to save you. You have to take this into your own hands, and that's what the power of Bitcoin allows you to do. And that's why I'll say, I don't know that Bitcoin's the answer, right? Buy gold too, buy silver, buy assets, right? I mean, real estate scares me because if there is an issue with the dollar, a lot of people are going to be shocked at what happens to real estate. Now, traditionally, it's been great, right? And so I wouldn't argue against somebody deciding to store some of their wealth in real estate. That's been a great decision forever. But it doesn't matter. Any of those assets are better than holding dollars that they will continue to debase forever. And you're starting to see it. The thing that blows my mind with crypto is they will get up there and they will tell you it's a stupid, silly project that has no value, but we should also consider banning it. And it's like
Exactly.
and so that tells you everything that you need to know about it, right? And whatever, here's a good rule of life. Whatever you see on mainstream media, do the opposite, and you'll be better off, right? That's just it's not like sitting here saying, "Oh my God, I'm right wing or left wing." It's just literally an understanding of everything they say is not true, or is propaganda. And if we haven't figured that out by now, it's just time to start paying attention. There's an agenda behind everything they say. There's money, and you don't even have to look at it from a political point of view. Crises get clicks. That's the simple answer to all of this. And so you're not going to see uplifting stories about individuals that are bettering their lives and bettering the lives of others. What you're going to see is crisis after crisis after crisis, because that gets clicks, that drives money, that drives revenue for these companies. All right, and they don't care anymore about doing what's right. And so that's where you have to take this into your own hands. And I believe, Ted believes, that Bitcoin, especially Bitcoin and crypto also, is a great way to do that and learn about how to do that.
Yeah, hallelujah. So what can you do? That's kind of the million dollar question is, what can you do? I think I was having a thread this morning with someone. They were mentioning that they listened to what we have to say, and I was like, oh, that's great. And
awesome.
Really, at the end of the day, what I articulated back in summary was that this person made a statement, and it was that people are afraid of crypto, and it makes sense that they are, because the big they in the sky, the mainstream media, like, well, they say that blah blah blah, they do this, they whoever they are. It's this idea that's been planted almost like Inception style, that crypto is bad. Okay, and yeah, you get the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, and they'll tell you all the reasons why it should. Just forget about Elizabeth Warren for a second. The thing I was trying to get to is that, like, the system that we are in may be broken, but it's familiar. One, two, people making change is difficult, especially in the face of like uncertainty. Okay, totally fine. What I was trying to communicate to this person was simply that until someone has an aha moment of their own, on their own, of their own, is until that happens, then the pivot, it's like a pivot needs, there's this like perspective change or this like mental pivot to start looking at this from a different angle and understanding that there's people that the crypto sphere, the crypto universe threatens a lot of other things like well-established traditional finance models, et cetera, et cetera. And if you don't know those things, you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know until you know it. The point I'm trying to get to is that until individuals it starts at the individual level, like at the molecular layer here, and people have these aha moments and they think, wait a minute, this is actually interesting, or I'm interested now because of A, B, C, or D. It's any number of the infinite number of reasons, but I think it starts with the aha moment at the individual level, one mind and one crypto wallet at a time, like we've said in the past. And anyway, so what can you do? You can take a deep breath and understand that there's good reason for folks like us and many, many others that are way better at this than we are, for example, that can educate you or give you things to think about in the short term to start developing your own understanding. I'm not trying to teach anybody anything. I'm trying to help people develop their own understanding, which is different, in my opinion. Anyway, that's what I asked.
And what I would comment there is, to the individual that said that you're scared of crypto or that people are scared of crypto, I think that's healthy. You should be scared of crypto, right? You should, and here's why you should be scared of it. Because when you understand what it is and what it was built for, it will change everything about how you see the world. And that's a scary thing, because when that happens, what you realize is everything you've been taught about money is wrong. And that's a scary thing. And let's not play it lightly. It's not a light thing to consider, because we base our whole lives around money. And so this idea that, crypto exists, and then there's all these other, degrees of crypto, right? You have everything from Bitcoin to meme coins, right? And everything in between. These are not easy concepts to understand at first, because what you have to do is unlearn everything you've learned about how money should work. And that is scary, because what that does is it makes you question everything you've done in your life so far. So that's a healthy concern. And you should be, if you're seeing stuff that, there's so many stories of people that have played the crypto game and gotten completely destroyed. And a lot of people do that, but if you take a measured approach to this and you look at this as something that is going to preserve my purchasing power into the future in the face of constant debasement, and not look at this as something that is going to make you rich overnight and solve all your problems, right? I think you're a lot better off as you learn this. And there is a lot of money to be made in crypto. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm in it solely for the tech. The big reason that I got into it was, firstly, it called to me because in 2017, I had no idea how money worked. I started reading about this, and all of a sudden I had my eureka moment. The second reason is we are here for financial gain, and anybody that tells you they're not is lying, right? That's an incentive structure built into Bitcoin and crypto. If these projects work and are successful, there is a financial reward. That is not a negative thing. That's how things work. So being scared, being scared is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I think it's healthy. But on the other side of that, fear, if you take a measured approach, you can really help yourself later down the road in life protect your purchasing power and become aware of how our system actually works, and it'll allow you to make decisions that'll set you up for a better place later in life.
Yeah, two things I want to add to what you're saying is that, one, like a handful of bad people in the world do some drug deals in U.S. dollars. Does that mean we stop using U.S. dollars, Josh?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Not.
And the incentive structure, everyone participating in the labor pool does so for monetary gain. Period.
Yeah.
Okay. So people will say, "Oh, I love my job. I would do it for free." No, you wouldn't. I mean, unless you're independently wealthy first, then I mean, let's just, on the average, the average person. I didn't work at McDonald's when I was 19 because I loved McDonald's and I loved serving people, loved seeing them smile. I needed a paycheck because I had to support myself. I had to live on my own because I was tired of living at home and living under the iron curtain, my mother's iron fist. Okay. And I had to make a choice in life. I can find a way to sustain myself financially in the world. And at that time, I didn't have any skills. I wasn't going to go be an accountant or a lawyer and make six figures. I had to find a way to trade my time for dollars and participate in the labor pool. And I did it begrudgingly because I knew that there would be monetary gain. Okay. So and I'll circle back to the other point I just made is that, listening to Pocahontas talk about people using crypto for money laundering. Well, guess what? The people made the rules on money laundering using the U.S. dollar to do so. The U.S. financial system and the banks in the U.S. wrote the book on money laundering using dollars. People launder money in art, in luxury timepieces. They launder money in every which way known to man under the sun. And you'll never hear her or anyone else in the political regime talk about all of the abuses of the U.S. financial system, modern day cases, legacy cases of good, wholesome banks and good, wholesome U.S. dollars being used in such a way or using the system to cleanse the currency of the bad juju on it for all of the illicit things that it was used to purchase.
Do you understand the term, the concept of projection?
I think I do.
Yeah. So look, when you listen to somebody like Elizabeth Warren or Brad Sherman get up there and talk about money laundering and crypto, what they're doing is they're projecting what they're doing onto you. Okay. This is something you learn over many years of watching these people get up there and lie and do. They are saying what they're doing, you're doing. That's projection, and it's very simple. And this is not Josh sitting here, saying, it's been proven over and over and over. These people are laundering money. They're, the banks have gotten caught. HSBC paid like an $800 million fine laundering drug cartel money, right? And these are the same people. These are the same people that donate to, to the lobby Elizabeth Warren and Brad Sherman. So let's call it what it is. They get up there in the same breath earlier I said, do the opposite of everything they say. Listen to what they say about anything they're attacking. What they're doing is projecting what they're doing onto you. And they do it all the time. And if you look at it through that light, you get a better understanding of what these people are and what they're doing and why you should not pay attention to them. What you should do is get into this, find people you can trust, there's so many good educators, podcasters, content creators, and we'll help you find that. If you're looking for something, comment and we'll point you in the right direction.
That's the excellent point you're making right here is that go ahead. Sorry. Forgive me.
No. It's the quote, like, that you see the tired old guy, like, this is also tiresome. Like,
yes,
that's what this is. These people get up there and they project exactly what they're doing onto you. And we're somehow supposed to feel, like a criminal for wanting to be financially sovereign and take control of our own financial destiny. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not going to do that. And I wouldn't recommend anybody else listen to these people either. They've lost all credibility. There's no trust in government anymore, and it's not my fault or your fault. It's their fault. They screwed the pooch, and so, that's where this stuff becomes so important. They lost trust. It wasn't the people who lost trust. It's not like they will sit up there and they will tell you, it's your fault. You did it. And no, it's not. It really isn't. But I think that's a good spot to transition to the last thing we wanted to talk about here.
Excellent.
And this is an article from Arthur Hayes. Arthur is a very good person to listen to in the crypto world. He was the founder of BitMEX. He's one of those personalities that he says his writing's unbelievable. But if you watch YouTube videos of him, he's a fun guy, right? Like, he enjoys his life. He likes to mess around a little bit, but he's been super successful in crypto. And so when Arthur writes an article, I pay attention to it because he understands this almost better than anybody. He gets the different levels of games in crypto and what's going on, but also has a great way of relating it to. He's similar to a Balaji, right? He sees the world through a different lens. And so, kind of ignore the meme stuff here, because this is how he presents his images in his articles. But when you read his articles, it's very powerful stuff. And what he talks about here is the denominator, right? So who's going to be left cleaning up the bag when the system fails? And the point he ultimately makes is it's the people that stay in the system and protect it that are the ultimate bag holders in the end. In 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, when this fiat dollar experiment finally, fails, who's going to be the people that are hurt? Well, it's not going to be the politicians. It's not going to be the banks. It's going to be the holders of the dollars, and they're the denominator, right? And you're the people that's hurt. So if you don't get your money outside of the system, you're going to be the one holding the bag when it implodes. And outside the system doesn't mean illegal. It means real estate, gold, Bitcoin, assets that retain their purchasing power in whatever denominator we end up going with. And so I read that last night, and I just wanted to share it because I think it's an important thing for people to try to understand.
That's right. Oh, good Lord. The thing I want to communicate is the thing that part of the aha moment I had was is right in line with this thing that he's talking about, is the denominator. And we were focused, or I was focused on acquiring more dollars, and it never occurred to me that the things that I was buying, certain things I was buying, it was not. Let me back up. When you buy real estate, it's typically been understood that if you buy a house in 5-10 years from now, you'll get more money back for the house than what you paid for it, meaning it went up in value. Now, did it go up in value because you improved it? Not necessarily. It goes up in things like real estate and gold go up in value because the denominator loses its purchasing power. In order to get the same amount of house for the dollar, you need to have more dollars. And that's this mind-blowing thing happened to me years and years ago, where I started to really understand that the reason you invest in anything typically is to preserve your purchasing power first, and maybe earn a few extra dollars in the process. You don't always get the both, and sometimes you don't get as many dollars as you put back. Like if you buy a car, you drive it off the lot, it's worth 40% less, and this is where supply and demand dynamics start to come into play. But the point I'm trying to get to is I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to encourage people to start to get their minds around the denominator, like he's talking about. And 10 years from now, when our monetary policy and all of the other things that are going on in the world have created the conditions where there's more QE, there's more rate cuts because things got crazy and credit got tight, et cetera, and our dollars are further debased. We're going to look back and say, thank goodness that I bought the house when I did. I do this today. I've lived in my house for just over 13 months now. And I look at what the interest rate I got on the money to buy it, and I look at what it's currently priced at. I've lifted no fingers to improve it. I have the grass cut. I don't even mow my own grass. There's the money I'm putting into the house, is that I'm maintaining it at zero. Okay. And it has appreciated in US dollar terms. So it takes more of the denominator in the trade to get the same house today. And if somebody were to come along and say, I'd like to buy your house, I'd say, well, how much are you willing to pay? And they would look at comps and be like, okay, I'll pay X. And I'll say, okay, well, if it's substantially more than what I paid, I'll kind of chuckle and think, okay, fine. But if you understand where I'm going with this, is that it takes more dollars a year later to buy the same house, and we've done no improvements. And it's, there's other factors, supply and demand.
The house is older. You've not made any improvements. The reason
Exactly.
It's gone up in value, the house hasn't gone up in value. The denominator, which is a US dollar, has debased in value. So therefore it requires more to buy the same thing. And so that is something that I think is important to understand. And people, this is a wealth effect, right? They look at all their assets and they believe that they've become wealthier. Well, not necessarily in terms of purchasing power. Okay, and that's something that is kind of hard to wrap your mind around. But as you do it, you'll start to understand it. The choice that I made over the last 6 years was to store my wealth in digital assets, right? And that could be a great decision. It could be a terrible decision. I don't know yet, right? But in the places that I've lived, it's been cheaper to rent, even though rent is expensive, than to own a house. And so the money it would have cost me to maintain the houses, pay HOA fees, pay real estate taxes, I've taken that and invested in Bitcoin and other digital assets. That's a choice I made. Maybe that's not the right choice for you, but there's just different ways to look at this. And what Arthur talks about here is, I think, really important to try to wrap your mind around and understand as this, collapse which is what it is, plays out. So I wanted people to get this in front of people and put him on your radar as somebody to follow. He's a little bit more advanced in his writing and the things he talks about, but if you find him on YouTube, he's got a lot of great interviews. Same with Balaji. Great way of looking at the world. Very clear understanding of what the issues are and what the potential solutions might be. So both these guys are great follows to help you on your path as you learn about Bitcoin and crypto and how this system currently works. So a good place to wrap it up. Ted, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I do. Get familiar with the denominator and what's happening to it. And I think that's a great basis for furthering your understanding of why someone would buy Bitcoin, for example, or why someone would choose to operate in the crypto universe and use the money that you can acquire in this new world, why it is different and better, perhaps different at a minimum, better. I don't know. It depends on the person. It depends on your use case. It depends on what you need. It depends on what you want. So get familiar with the denominator. Start there, and then talk or watch Arthur Hayes talk, watch Balaji talk, and then see where that takes you.
Nope.
I bet
Yeah,
you
I
a
think
fun journey.
all tools in your toolkit as you go down this journey and start to learn about all this. And every touch point with this, you'll get a different viewpoint, a different lens. And I think it's important to watch people that are Bitcoin maximalists, watch people that are not Bitcoin maximalists. The grand picture here is what you always have to remember. Always remember to zoom out. Look at where we are right now in Bitcoin, and it's trading at 27.5. You zoom out in 2 years, I think you'll be shocked at where it's at. Zoom back 2 years. These time frames are compressed, and it's always important to remember. The big idea here is, despite everything you might hear within crypto, the crypto exists because of the flaws in the traditional financial system. And as you learn about that, you'll understand, the actual use cases of this versus, what you see on the media and hear from the politicians. And the big point here is use it to better your own life. Like, that's it. Like I said earlier, nobody's coming to save you, but this stuff is available to learn about. This is one method of doing that. And I think that's a great place to wrap it up for today.
All right, super.
So we will flash this disclaimer. Nothing we say is financial advice. If you participate in these markets, you're doing so at your own risk. Do your own research and make sure you're careful when you do this, when you're just getting started. These markets are volatile. You could lose all your money, if you don't know what you're doing and you don't take your time to learn and understand how this works. So with that being said, we'll see you tomorrow.